You've written your birth year thousands of times, on forms, on cards, in quiet moments of reflection, and yet one small part of it has likely never received a single moment of your attention. Mrs. Farrah Logan, a numerologist who has spent decades studying the hidden language of numbers in human lives, calls the last digit of your birth year the number most people live inside without ever seeing. There's also a particular reason why two people born in the same year can feel like they belong to entirely different worlds, and it traces back to this same overlooked digit. If thoughtful, quietly revelatory stories are what you find yourself drawn to, you found a comfortable place to settle in tonight. What this single number reveals about the arc of a life is more specific and more quietly personal than most people are prepared for. The single digit that shapes your whole life. Most people think of their birth year as a fixed fact, a stamp of history, a generational marker, something shared with millions of others born in the same 12 months. But numerology asks a different question entirely. Not what year were you born, but what is the energetic frequency carried by the final digit of that year? Mrs. Farrah Logan describes this as the tuning note of a life, the underlying vibration that colors how a person naturally approaches challenge, connection, and meaning. It is not the whole song, but it is the key the song is written in. The 9 possible digits, 0 through 9, with 0 treated as 10 and reduced, each carry a distinct quality that numerologists have documented across centuries of observation. The digit 1, for instance, tends to produce people who feel a deep interior pull toward originality and self-determination, even when their outward life appears conventional. The digit 7 tends to produce people who are unusually drawn to questions that have no easy answers, to philosophy, to solitude, to the kind of thinking that goes several layers deeper than the surface of things. These are not rigid personality types. They are more like an underlying weather. What makes this particular digit worth examining, as Mrs. Farrah Logan has pointed out in her work, is that it operates below the level of conscious choice. People rarely select the behaviors and inclinations associated with their birth digit. They simply find themselves returning to them across different relationships, different cities, different seasons of life, as though drawn by a current they never decided to swim in. Understanding the digit doesn't remove that current, but it does give a person, often for the first time, the experience of seeing the water they have always been moving through. Why certain numbers keep finding you again. There is a phenomenon that nearly everyone has noticed, and almost no one has fully explained. Certain numbers appear in a person's life with a frequency that feels too consistent to be random. A woman notices that significant events in her life cluster around years ending in the same digit as her birth year. A man realizes that the addresses, phone numbers, and anniversaries that have mattered most to him share a recurring numerical thread. These observations tend to be dismissed as pattern-seeking, the mind finding shapes in noise, but the dismissal itself may be worth examining more carefully. Numerologists argue, and some cognitive researchers would partially agree, that the numbers we notice are often connected to numbers we are neurologically primed to recognize. The brain is a pattern completion machine. It flags what is familiar, what resonates with stored experience. If a particular digit carries personal significance at the level of birth, the brain may genuinely be more attuned to its appearance than to other digits. This is not mysticism. It is attentional bias with a meaningful origin point. The number doesn't follow you. You have simply been calibrated from birth to find it. The behavior shift people describe when they begin paying conscious attention to their birth digit is subtle but consistent. They start to notice moments of resonance, not just in numbers, but in themes. The digit 3, for instance, tends to recur for people born in years ending in 3, not just numerically, but thematically. Conversations involving 3 people, decisions that arrived in 3 stages, creative projects that found their shape on the third attempt. Whether this is the universe speaking or the mind organizing its own experience is a question worth holding rather than rushing to answer. Take a quiet moment right now and think of the last digit of your own birth year, just that single number. Let it sit in your mind without analyzing it. Notice if any feeling arrives alongside it: familiarity, curiosity, something unnameable. You don't need to do anything with that feeling tonight. Simply noticing it is its own small beginning. What your birth year's last digit actually reveals. In ancient traditions stretching back through Greek, Hebrew, and Chinese philosophical thought, numbers were never considered merely mathematical tools. They were understood as qualities, as living principles, each carrying a distinct character, the way colors carry distinct temperatures. The number 5, in nearly every traditional system, represents movement, freedom, and the unexpected, the force that disrupts equilibrium and introduces change. The number 2 represents sensitivity, partnership, and the particular intelligence that lives in listening rather than speaking. These associations were not invented casually. They were refined across generations of careful observation of human behavior. Mrs. Farrah Logan draws on this long tradition while grounding it in something more immediately practical. Her approach is less interested in abstract symbolism and more focused on a specific question. What does this digit explain about the patterns a person has already lived? When people sit with their birth digit through her lens, the most common response is not surprise at what it reveals, but a quiet recognition, a sense of, I always knew this about myself, but I never had a word for it. The digit doesn't deliver new information. It tends to confirm something a person has sensed about themselves for a long time, without quite being able to name. The reason this confirmation feels meaningful rather than trivial is that being seen, even by a number, even by an ancient system, activates something real in the human nervous system. Researchers studying self-recognition experiences have found that moments of genuine self-understanding produce measurable shifts in emotional regulation. People become calmer, more self-compassionate, more willing to extend patience to the parts of themselves they have historically found most frustrating. The birth digit, understood deeply, can function as precisely this kind of mirror: quiet, specific, and surprisingly kind. As we go deeper into this video, each digit will be examined in the kind of detail that most general numerology summaries never quite reach. And there is one digit in particular whose reputation is almost entirely backwards from what it actually means: the personality trait hidden in plain sight. Every person carries a quality so natural to them that they cannot see it from the outside. It is simply the water they swim in, the air they breathe. For people born in years ending in 1, that invisible quality is often an extraordinary capacity for independent thought that they themselves may have spent a lifetime apologizing for. Being told they are stubborn, opinionated, difficult to convince. What looks like stubbornness from the outside is from the inside a deep fidelity to what they have personally verified as true. The digit 1 does not produce people who refuse to listen. It produces people who require genuine evidence before they update their understanding. And that is an entirely different thing. For those born in years ending in 4, the hidden quality tends to be a relationship with structure that goes far deeper than preference. These are people who feel genuinely unsettled by disorder, not because they are rigid, but because they intuitively understand that the right container is what makes meaningful things possible. A garden needs borders. A building needs a foundation. People with a 4 digit at their birth year's end often spend years being misunderstood as overly cautious or resistant to spontaneity, when what they are actually doing is quietly ensuring that whatever is being built has enough integrity to last. That commitment to endurance is rarely recognized for what it is. The digit 9, perhaps more than any other, carries a hidden quality that its bearers tend to find both gift and burden. People born in years ending in 9 often possess an unusually wide emotional range. They feel things broadly across many people and situations, as though their empathy has a larger than ordinary radius. This can make them extraordinary friends, caregivers, and listeners. It can also make ordinary life feel unexpectedly heavy at times, because they are carrying more than just their own emotional weight. The hidden trait that numerologists consistently associate with the 9 is what Mrs. Farrah Logan calls the wisdom of accumulated feeling, a depth of understanding that only comes from having felt a great deal and chosen to stay present through all of it. 2 people born same year feel completely different. It is one of the most common observations in any family. 2 siblings born just a year apart seem to come from entirely different worlds. One is cautious, where the other is bold. One meets people around them constantly. The other does their best thinking in solitude. Parents who assumed that shared environment would produce shared temperament find themselves quietly bewildered by how different their children turned out to be. Numerology offers one explanation that the usual developmental theories don't quite cover. The last digit of the birth year creates a fundamentally different energetic starting point, and no amount of shared experience fully overrides it. Consider 2 people born in years ending in 6 and 7, respectively. The 6 is oriented at its core toward harmony, responsibility, and the deep satisfaction of being genuinely needed by the people they love. They tend to build their lives around relationships, not from dependency, but from a genuine sense that connection is where meaning lives. The 7, sitting right beside it in the sequence, is oriented almost entirely differently, toward interior investigation, toward the questions that have no social answer, toward a solitude that is not loneliness, but a necessary condition for the kind of thinking they are here to do. Place these 2 people in the same family, and they will feel, to each other, like they are built from different materials. Because, in a meaningful sense, they are. Mrs. Farrah Logan has observed, across years of working with families and individuals, that the greatest relief people experience through numerology is not the discovery of something new about themselves. It is the permission to stop being confused by their own nature. When a person born in a year ending in 5 finally understands why they have never been able to stay still for long, why every chapter of their life has felt like preparation for a movement that keeps arriving before they feel ready, something releases. The restlessness stops feeling like a flaw. It begins to feel like a design. And that shift, small as it sounds, can quietly change everything. The digit most connected to unexpected life turns. The digit 5 carries a reputation in numerology that is both accurate and frequently misunderstood. It is associated with change, with unpredictability, with a life that refuses to stay in a single shape for long. People born in years ending in 5 tend to accumulate more distinct chapters than their peers. More careers, more relocations, more radical revisions of what they thought their life was going to be. From the outside, this can look like instability. From the inside, it tends to feel less like chaos and more like a series of necessary completions, each one clearing the ground for something that could not have arrived any earlier. What makes the 5 digit particularly interesting is the mechanism behind this pattern of change. Numerologists describe the 5 as the midpoint of the single-digit sequence, positioned between the building energy of 1 through 4 and the completing energy of 6 through 9. This middle position creates what might be described as a structural appetite for transition. People with this digit at their birth year's end are not simply more tolerant of change than others. They are, at some level, energized by it, in a way that more stable digits are not. The arrival of something new does not drain them. it restores them, in the way that a change of scenery restores someone who has been indoors too long. The unexpected life turns associated with the 5-digit are not always chosen, and this is where the experience can become genuinely challenging. Circumstances seem to conspire for 5-digit people to introduce pivots that were not planned and not initially welcomed. A job that seemed permanent ends suddenly. A relationship that appeared settled reveals itself to be in motion. A health event or a geographic shift arrives without invitation and reorganizes everything that followed. What these people tend to discover looking back is that the unplanned turns were often the most important ones, the ones that delivered them to places they would never have found by following the original map. A woman named Evelyn, born in a year ending in 5, once described her life to a friend as a book where the chapters keep surprising me. She had been a school teacher, then a painter, then unexpectedly the founder of a small community garden that became the most meaningful thing she had ever done. She never planned any of it. Each new chapter arrived, she said, feeling both completely unexpected and somehow exactly right. What ancient cultures already knew about birth numbers. Long before numerology became a popular subject in modern spiritual circles, ancient traditions across the world had developed sophisticated systems for understanding the relationship between numbers and human nature. The Pythagoreans of ancient Greece taught that numbers were not merely tools for counting, but living principles, each one carrying a distinct quality that expressed itself through everything it touched, including the people associated with it. In the Hebrew Kabbalistic tradition, the practice of gematria assigned deep significance to numerical values as a way of understanding the hidden structure of names, words, and by extension, the lives of the people who bore them. In Chinese cosmological thought, certain numbers were understood to carry qualities that influenced not just individual lives, but entire eras. The number 8 was associated with abundance and cyclical completion, a quality still reflected in modern Chinese cultural preferences for 8 in phone numbers, addresses, and significant dates. The number 4, by contrast, was approached with caution in some traditions because its sound in Mandarin resembled the word for death, a linguistic accident that nonetheless produced real behavioral patterns across generations. These cultural responses to number qualities, however differently expressed, point toward a shared intuition that numbers are not neutral, and that the numbers associated with a birth carry particular weight. What is remarkable when you study these traditions side by side is not their differences, but their convergences. Cultures that had no contact with each other arrived at surprisingly similar conclusions about specific digits. The number 7, associated in Pythagorean, Hebrew, and various Asian traditions with depth, mystery, and interior wisdom, is described in nearly identical terms across systems that developed independently. This kind of cross-cultural agreement is, in scholarly terms, a signal worth taking seriously. When people who share no common heritage independently arrive at the same conclusion about the character of the number, the possibility that they are pointing at something real becomes harder to dismiss. The relationship pattern tied to your last digit. There is a pattern in relationships that most people notice eventually, but rarely trace back to its origin. A particular dynamic that seems to repeat across different partners, different friendships, different family configurations. A person who consistently finds themselves in the role of caretaker. Someone who repeatedly attracts relationships requiring patience and emotional endurance. Another who seems to draw creative, unstable personalities into their orbit, regardless of how carefully they choose. Numerologists argue that these patterns are not accidents of circumstance, but are directly connected to the relational quality carried by the birth digit, the energetic frequency that a person broadcasts without knowing it in every encounter. The digit 2, for instance, is understood in numerology as the number of receptivity and attunement, the quality of deep listening, of sensitivity to the needs of others, of a natural inclination toward cooperation rather than competition. People born in years ending in 2 tend to be extraordinarily good at making others feel heard and valued. This is a genuine gift. The shadow side of it, the part that creates the repeating pattern, is a tendency to extend that attunement so fully that their own needs become the quietest voice in every room. They attract people who need to be heard, and they give beautifully, often long past the point where reciprocity has quietly stopped arriving. For people born in years ending in 8, the relational pattern often involves a particular dance with power, not in a domineering sense, but in the sense of gravitational weight. The 8 carries an energy of authority and competence that tends to make others look to them for direction, for stability, for the reassurance that someone capable is in charge. This can make 8-digit people extraordinarily effective in leadership and crisis situations. It can also make intimacy complicated, because the people who look to them for strength may struggle to offer strength in return, leaving the 8-digit person in the paradoxical position of being widely relied upon and quietly, persistently, alone in their own weight. Why some digits carry a heavier emotional weight. Not all digits are experienced with equal lightness, and anyone who has spent time studying numerology with real depth will acknowledge that certain numbers, by their nature, carry a more complex emotional charge than others. The digit 9 stands at the end of the single-digit sequence, and this position gives it a quality that numerologists consistently describe as the weight of completion. People born in years ending in 9 are, in some sense, carrying the accumulated energetic residue of all the numbers that came before. This is not a curse, it is a depth. But depth, as anyone who has lived it knows, is not always easy to carry lightly. The digit 4 carries a different kind of weight, the weight of responsibility that was never chosen, but was somehow always present. People born in years ending in 4 often describe a sense, from early childhood, of being the one who was supposed to hold things together. In families that needed steadiness, they provided it. In friendships that needed reliability, they showed up. In professional settings, they became the person others counted on without fully considering what that counting required of them. The 4's weight is the weight of being trusted completely and of rarely giving themselves the same quality of trust in return. The digit 0, or 10 reduced, carries what might be described as the weight of potential. People born in years ending in 0 often describe a lifelong sense of being poised at the edge of something significant that hasn't fully arrived yet. This can produce remarkable resilience and a genuine gift for beginning things. A career calling written into your birth year. There is a question that most people carry for longer than they would like to admit. Not what job should I have, but something deeper and more personal. What am I here to do with the particular qualities I was given? Vocational numerology, the study of how birth numbers relate to purpose and calling, approaches this question not by prescribing a specific career path, but by identifying the underlying quality that a person is here to express. The specific form that expression takes matters less than whether the form allows the essential quality to fully show up. A person with a 3-digit can express their creativity through painting, through teaching, through cooking, through conversation. What they cannot do, not for long, not without a particular kind of interior erosion, is spend their life in an environment where nothing new is ever created. The digit 1 tends toward callings that require originality and the courage of an independent perspective. Entrepreneurship, leadership, pioneering work in any field. The digit 6 tends toward callings organized around care, beauty, and the harmonizing of communities. Healing professions, education, design, the patient work of making environments more humane. The digit 8 tends toward callings that involve the responsible management of significant resources or systems. Finance, administration, the kind of organizational stewardship that keeps large things functioning. These are not rules. They are frequencies. And when a person's work aligns with their birth digit's frequency, even partially, even imperfectly, something in them tends to settle into a quality of engagement that feels less like effort and more like rightness. What is quietly poignant about this dimension of numerology is how many people in the second half of their lives look back and recognize that their most meaningful work, the contribution they feel best about, the role that felt most genuinely theirs, was almost always aligned with their digit's calling. Not the job that paid the most, not the position that received the most recognition, the work that asked for the specific quality they were born carrying and gave it somewhere real to go. That recognition, arriving sometimes decades into a life, is one of the more bittersweet gifts that self-knowledge can offer. And it always arrives in time to matter. What changes when you finally understand your number? There is a specific quality of shift that happens when a person encounters a description of themselves that is accurate in an unexpected way. Not flattering, not generic, but genuinely precise about something they have always felt but never been able to articulate. The shift is not dramatic. It doesn't arrive with emotion or revelation. It arrives as a quiet settling, the feeling of something that was slightly misaligned coming to rest in a more accurate position. People who experience this through numerology often describe it as less like learning something new and more like being handed a word for something they already knew. The behavioral changes that follow genuine self-understanding through the birth digit tend to be subtle and durable. People become more patient with their own recurring patterns, less likely to interpret their digit's characteristic tendencies as personal failures. The 7-digit person who has spent decades feeling guilty about meeting solitude begins to treat that need as legitimate rather than antisocial. The 2-digit person who has always given more than they received begins to recognize the pattern clearly enough to make different choices. Not all at once, not perfectly, but with a new quality of conscious awareness that was previously unavailable. Understanding doesn't eliminate the pattern. It changes the person's relationship to it. The detail about your digit nobody mentions first. Every introduction to numerology begins in the same place. The positive qualities, the gifts, the flattering summary of what each digit means at its best. And those qualities are real. They deserve to be understood and appreciated. But the detail that most introductions quietly skip over is this. Every digit has a specific friction point, a characteristic place where its strength becomes its most consistent source of difficulty. And knowing that friction point is, arguably, more useful than knowing the gifts, because the friction tends to be the thing a person has been managing, unconsciously, for their entire life. For the digit 3, the friction lives in the gap between creative vision and follow-through. The 3 generates ideas with remarkable ease and abundance, and then finds sustained execution genuinely difficult, not from laziness, but from the fact that the next idea has already arrived and feels more alive than the current one. For the digit 6, the friction lives in the gap between the harmony a person creates for everyone around them and the unaddressed disharmony they carry privately, having long ago learned to deprioritize their own peace in service of everyone else's. These are not weaknesses. They are the specific edge where the digit's greatest gift meets its greatest demand. The detail nobody mentions first is also this. The friction point of your birth digit is almost certainly the thing you have been told at various points in your life is your most problematic quality. The 1's independence has been called selfishness. The 7's need for depth has been called withdrawal. The 9's emotional range has been called oversensitivity. What numerology offers, when it goes far enough, is the reframing of these so-called problems as the inevitable shadow of genuine gifts. Not excuses, not absolutes, but honest acknowledgments that every real strength casts a real shadow. And knowing the shape of that shadow is the beginning of learning to work with it rather than against yourself for the rest of the life you still have ahead. You were born in a particular year at a particular moment, carrying a single digit that has been quietly present in everything that followed, in the way you love, the way you work, the way you have made sense of the chapters that surprised you. None of that was random. None of it was without its own internal logic, its own frequency, its own invitation toward a particular kind of life.